Always assemble and align the gears on the bottom of the unit before installing the gears on the top. Alignment of the mechanism is done in the stop or half loading position. The order of assembly is critical for proper alignment of the gears. First, make sure that the loading posts are in the unloaded position, and then position the loading arm T unit onto its mounting shaft. Repeat the same operation with the loading arm S unit, except align the holes in the two loading arm gears with each other. Now position the ring gear so that the two holes in the gear line up with the two holes in the frame. Next, install a retainer gear onto the ring gear. Align the two holes in the retainer gear with the holes in the ring gear and frame. Once the gears are in position, the loading cam gear can be installed. Align the hole on the loading cam gear with the hole on the retainer gear. Now install the sector gear. Line up the hole in the sector gear with the marking on the loading arm T unit. Next, place the drive gear on its mounting shaft. No special alignment is required. The intermediate gear is installed on the shaft beside the drive gear. Be sure that the washer is in place underneath the intermediate gear before installing the gear. Use a new split washer on the shaft to hold the gear in place. Do not reuse old split washers. They are not as strong as new ones and may not stay on the shaft. The release lever is installed next. The solenoid kick rod must be correctly positioned when installing the release lever. The end of the kick rod can be positioned by moving the tab attached to the other end of the kick rod. The kick rod needs to fit on the right-hand side of the change lever. Hold the kick rod to the right while installing the release lever. Then install a mounting screw. Push the solenoid plunger to check for proper operation of the release lever. After installing the release lever, the subcam gear can be installed. First, temporarily remove the retainer gear. Then align the large hole in the subcam gear with the hole in the frame. Also align the small hole in the subcam gear with the small hole in the ring gear. Then replace the retainer gear, making sure that it is properly positioned. Again, the two holes need to line up with the holes in the frame, and the small hole needs to line up with the small hole in the loading cam gear. Now install the D10 arm. Fit the lobe on the D10 arm into the notch in the subcam gear. After the D10 arm is positioned, place the main cam gear on top of the subcam gear. Align the large hole in the main cam gear with the holes in the subcam gear and frame. Also, align the small hole on the edge of the main cam gear with the small hole in the retainer gear. After the gear is in place, install a retaining ring. Next, the sun gear needs to be installed. Align the two large holes in the sun gear with the two holes in the retainer gear, ring gear, and frame. Use a new split washer to hold the gears in place. To install a clutch disc, align the small hole in the clutch disc with the hole in the sun gear. Again, use a new split washer to hold the gear in place. The center pulley is installed next. Make sure that the washer is on the shaft before installing the center pulley. After the pulley is in place, use a new split washer on the shaft. Now the main and sub levers can be installed. First, make sure the washers are on the mounting shafts before installing the main and sub levers. Gently lower the levers into place. And make sure that the pin on the tension release arm is on the outside of the tab on the main lever. Position the pins of the supply reel brakes so that they fit into the correct slots in the main and sub levers. Hold the main and sub levers in place while positioning the brake pins on the take-up side. Again, make sure that the pins fit into the correct slots. Use new split washers to hold the levers in place. Next, position the cam follower arm onto its mounting shaft. Fit the pin on the cam follower arm into the groove on the main cam gear. Position the tab on the other end of the arm into the slot in the main lever. Once the arm is in place, install a retaining ring. Now install the tension roller adjustment plate. Next, install a washer on the shaft of the sector gear. Then install a span limiter. Use retaining rings on the sector gear end of the span limiter to hold the span limiter in place. The rib timing belt can now be put onto the capstan pulley and the center pulley. With the belt in place, install the tension roller unit. Make sure that the tension roller unit pushes in on the belt. Once it is in place, install a screw, but do not tighten it completely. Adjust the tension roller for 4 to 4.5 millimeters between the center of the screw and the edge of the adjustment slot. With the gears on the bottom of the mechanism aligned into the half-loading position, the gears on the top of the unit can now be installed. The pressure reduction gear must be installed from the top of the unit but aligned from the bottom. Align the small hole on the pressure reduction gear with the small hole on the main cam gear. Hold the pressure reduction gear in place and turn the mechanism over. Install the P5 sector gear onto its mounting shaft. Align the hole in the P5 sector gear with the end tooth of the P5 arm. Next, install a pressure roller lift cam. Position the lift cam so that the protrusion on the tooth of the lift cam lines up with the small hole on the pressure reduction gear, not the large hole completely through the gear. Also, align the small hole in the opposite side of the lift cam with the hole in the mode select switch. The P5 arm must be held fully clockwise while installing the lift cam. Now install a pressure roller arm onto its mounting shaft. Make sure that it is down all the way onto the pressure roller lift cam. Then install a pressure cam cap. Make sure that it seats. The subloading arm is installed into the half-loading position. Be sure that the tab on the bottom of the subloading arm fits on the outside of the loading cam gear. After the subloading arm is in place, install a retaining ring. Then connect the spring to the tab on the capstan holder unit. Now install the link gear. Align the hole on the link gear with the hole in the subcam gear. Once the gear is in place, use a new split washer on the shaft. Assembly of the mechanism is now complete, but before installing the cassette up unit, manually operate the mechanism to check the gear alignment. Press the solenoid plunger to engage the clutch disc and turn the center pulley to cause the mechanism to load. Because the solenoid is not being held in, the clutch disc is disengaged each time it completes one revolution. This causes the loading to occur in stages. When each stage is reached, the solenoid plunger must be pressed again to continue loading. When the pressure roller is pressed against the capstan shaft and the loading arms are against the V-stoppers, the play position has been reached and loading is complete. Next, completely unload the mechanism by turning the center pulley in the unload direction while pressing the solenoid plunger. Unloading occurs in stages just like loading. When the subloading arm and P5 arm both reach the fully unloaded position, drive is transferred to the subcam gear for cassette unloading. Continue turning the center pulley until it cannot be turned anymore. After the mechanism has been checked, the cassette up unit can be installed. Always check the alignment of the cassette up unit before installation. With the unit in the full eject position, the tab on the rack assembly should line up with the mark on the cassette up down switch. Next, put the cassette holder into the down position. The cassette opener must be lifted up to clear the notches in the cassette holder unit. Also, the locking tab on the left side of the cassette holder must be pressed in to clear the hole in the cassette top plate. With the unit in the down position, the triangle mark on the right side wiper arm should line up with the triangle mark on the rack assembly. If the cassette up unit needs alignment, refer to the procedure in the service manual. The cassette up unit must be installed while in either the down or eject position. The down position method requires that the cassette top plate and cassette holder be removed. This method is described in the service manual and will not be demonstrated in this tape. No disassembly is required to install the cassette up unit from the eject position. Before installing the cassette up unit onto the mechanism, make sure that the gears are in the full eject position. Turn the center pulley in the unload direction until it cannot be turned anymore. Remember the position of the hole on the link gear. Then turn the center pulley in the loading direction until the link gear turns 1 revolution. With the cassette up unit in the eject position, move the cassette holder so that the second tooth on the rack assembly is centered in the hole of the mounting tab. When the cassette up unit is installed, the second tooth needs to fit into the 5th slot clockwise from the groove marking in the link gear. The 5th slot is beside the alignment hole in the link gear. Sight through the hole in the cassette top plate to guide the unit into place. Carefully lower the cassette up unit onto the frame while making sure that the second tooth of the rack assembly fits into the 5th slot of the link gear. After installing the mounting screws, confirm proper alignment of the cassette up unit by manually operating the mechanism. Remember to lift up on the cassette opener and press down on the locking tab as the holder loads. After loading is complete, then manually eject the cassette holder. The assembly and alignment of the mechanism is now complete. The purpose of this videotape has been to show the new mechanical section used in the VR9668 VCR. Many of the alignment procedures described in the service manual have been demonstrated. However, always refer to the correct service manual for complete procedures when servicing any VCR.